Our first word is journey. Journey is traveling to a place, especially at a long distance. So you might think, well, what's the difference between a journey and a trip, right? They're both similar. They took a trip, they took a journey, but a journey usually means a long trip, and it's a difficult trip, and you have many experiences on the way. So of course, if you fly from Europe to America, that's just a trip. It's not really a journey. But if you get in a boat and you cross the ocean for many months, that is a journey. Okay, so that's kind of the difference between journey and trip. Explorer is our next word. An explorer is a person who travels to an area, usually the first person to travel to that area, to learn about it, to discover a new land. But, you know, many explorers, when they have traveled, they come to lands, there's people already living there. So it's not like they discovered it. They discovered it for the people back home, right? The people in their home country don't know about this land. So they're kind of exploring that land for the knowledge of their own native people back home. Okay, but of course, in many places in the world, explorers would go to a new area, but there were people already living there, okay? So they didn't really discover the land, but they did explore it for their home country. Okay, moving on. Adventure. Have you been on an adventure? An adventure is something that is exciting, usually interesting. Hopefully it's fun. Not always fun, but hopefully it's fun. Adventure has a positive meaning. So an adventure, remember the word journey? We talked about that before. A journey is a long trip, maybe a difficult trip. Well, an adventure is a journey or event with unknown danger. But usually we think of adventure in a fun or exciting way, like you take an adventure to a camp, or you take an adventure to the beach and some interesting things happen to you. But of course, when we read books about adventures of people a long time ago, they faced many dangers, but it was exciting and they survived. So it's an adventure, or like an adventure story. Okay, like Peter Pan would be an adventure story. Okay, next. Colonist. Now, a colonist is a person. How do we know that? Because IST, whenever you have IST, you know that it's a type of person. It is a person who lives in a newly settled town. And really a colonist comes from the word colony, and colonies are when one country or one nation sends its own citizens to a foreign land and they make a town there, okay? That new land is not really part of the nation or the country where the people are coming from, but they're establishing, like they're claiming that land as their own, and they're sending their people to live there, and that is a colony. Of course, we don't practice that anymore. Thank goodness, okay? Because most of the areas are settled and people have rights to their own land. So we don't have colonies anymore, but a long time ago, hundreds of years ago, many countries wanted to spread out and claim land around the world, and they would send out colonists to populate their colonies. Okay. A settlement is a type of colony, right? A settlement is a small town in a new area for the home country, right? So the home country would, they go out, they explore, they find new lands, and they create a small town. They would call that town a settlement. Okay, next word. Survive. To survive means to stay alive or to go on living. Now, of course, it's very easy to survive these days. We have many conveniences. But hundreds of years ago, people had a difficult time surviving in places that were new to them, right? If they go to a new place and there aren't any towns or cities or things that they are familiar with, and they have to live in nature, well, then it's very difficult to survive. So survive is, to try to endure difficult conditions and to continue living. Copper. Copper is a type of metal. There are many types of metal that are important to people. For example, copper is probably the most common most common valuable metal. Most common valuable, well, that's probably tin, but copper is maybe next to that. And then silver, gold, platinum, right? So copper is relatively common, but you need to mine it, and it's a metal that we can use for many different things. Now, a long time ago, copper was a metal that, well, it still is, but copper was used to make things like pots and pottery. It's still used. Copper is still used sometimes to make cooking pans, but usually copper nowadays is used to make electrical wiring, right? It runs through all the wires to make light and to give electricity into your home. So it's kind of red-brown, and it's relatively soft. If you take a knife and try to push it into copper, you will leave a mark. So it's a little bit of a soft metal. But it was very useful because it is a metal. Many metals, of course, are very useful to human beings. Okay, next. Lumber. Lumber is another type of resource. Metal is a resource. Lumber is a resource, but lumber comes from trees, right? If you cut down a tree and you cut the tree into very long parts, you have a very long piece of wood. The standard size is 2x4, 2 inches by 4 inches. Sorry, I don't know the centimeters, but 2x4, these are 2x4s. And it just means 2 inches wide, 4 inches long, and that is a standard size for lumber that is used to build houses, right? A wood that is cut up to be used, and usually we make houses out of lumber. Okay, those are our words for this lesson.
Lesson 8. Explorers and Early Americans. Journey. Traveling to a place, especially at a long distance. Explorer. A person who travels to an area to learn about it. Adventure. A journey or event with unknown danger. Colonist. A person who lives in a newly settled town. Settlement. A small town in a new area. Survive. To stay alive or to go on living. Copper. A kind of metal that is red-brown and relatively soft. Lumber. A wood that is cut up to be used.